I think I am live. Let's see. Check on my phone. I'll also put my headphones on so you can hear my microphone. And as usual, I just kind of like came into the room only slightly unprepared. Yeah. Oh, right. I was going to check if I was live. Let me check. I hope you're all having a good day if you're coming in to this live video, or if you're watching the replay. Now I will. Oh, I feel like, yes, that's it. Yes. Yes, we are live. Like, I'm sure that I am, but okay, but I just want to double check. So what are we talking about today? Right, it's the Wellness Journal, right? Let me introduce what's going on, right? So every Wednesday we do the Wellness Journal, and the Wellness Journal, as of right now, is sort of us being introduced to all the integrative health pillars. So you could sort of think of integrative health as like a nutrition plan, but not just for your tummy, but also for your heart and your brain and your spirit and all parts of your life and your relationships and your health. And suddenly it's like you're working on your career, or you're working on, your home cooking skills. So really integrative health is seen as, or integrative nutrition is seen as like a very holistic approach to how one could be healthy, how one could feel well on a day-to-day basis. And if you're like me and you live with chronic illness, it might be that you never really feel like 100% well, like every day or any day. But that is how it is when you're chronically ill, right? I mean, that's just something that we learn to sort of navigate from day to day. Some days are worse than others. But on some days when we are feeling well, we might wonder, what are we going to do with ourselves? Like, what do we do? So like most people, we just do what is easiest, right? And so if you don't have a lot of energy or a lot of ability to dive into a hobby or a career or a relationship, it could be just that you want to dabble in something. And if you feel overwhelmed by that idea, it could be just easier to watch TV or to play video games or to be on social media or to just kind of like putter around. That could be puttering around on the combination of social media, of TV, of also, possibly doing the little chores that you could do around the house and or do for yourself. And that, just isn't as fulfilling as if you were able to go into something a little bit more deep and be more stimulated by, and possibly see where it goes, right? Like TV can really only go so many places. Social media can really only go so many places, especially when the scroll pace is so high, right? I mean, if we were to watch an hour-long documentary on TV and then possibly have a discussion about that documentary, and then maybe take out a book from the library about that topic, and then do some journaling about the topic. I mean, that is different than what we're typically doing on TV or on social media. So sort of I'm painting a more realistic picture of like what we're really doing, not what we could be doing. So I guess I forget exactly what I was trying to say, and I did take some notes, but I just didn't get very far because I felt like as I was watching videos about this and as I was sort of learning about today's topic, I sort of wasn't getting what I was looking for. And for this first round of this subject, I thought that I would just really try to just present the subject to us, and then we can go from there in the comment section or out into our communities or into our sort of, mind bank and think about, okay, well, yeah, if I agree that this pillar is something that can make me happier, do I agree that being happier makes me feel healthier and more confident and more autonomous and more fulfilled in my life, right? So possibly if this topic speaks to you and feels relevant to your health, then you will sort of like dig deeper from there. And that's what I'm hoping will happen. That's kind of what I'm hoping for all of these subjects, because really it doesn't matter what I think. It matters more what you think and what you want to do with your life. So I'm really just here to present a pillar, present an area of your health in your life and of integrative nutrition. And then from there, you decide how to roll that ball and where to roll it to, and at which pace you can roll it, right? So if I didn't already say it, and I think I didn't, and I was sort of like waiting for the right time, but today's subject is education, and at least that's what the pillar is called. And as I sort of was thinking about what we would chat about today, I decided that I don't know if education feels the right word at this age that I am. And depending on the age that you are, depending on your own, thoughts about this, education may or may not be the right word for you. And I could put it into words why I don't think education is quite the right word. But maybe you can already guess for yourself. So for me, education feels pretty formal, and feels like something that I would do specifically for my job or a career. And it also feels like something that that would have like a conclusion, like a degree of some kind or a certificate of some kind, right? And when I think about the type of learning that I'm doing at this age for my own health and well-being, they don't really fit in that category so much. Now, it's true to say that I currently am enrolled in the Integrative Institute of Integral Medicine, of Integral Nutrition. Oh my God, this is not a paid promotion, obviously. Nevertheless, I am currently enrolled in that course, and there is a certificate at the end, and I do hope to be a coach at the end. Therefore, I would say, yes, this is somewhat of an education. But as I was explaining to my partner earlier, or even yesterday maybe, is that not everybody is enrolled in this course to become a coach and or to do anything specifically career oriented. Some people are in this course just to gain more knowledge on integrative nutrition. And I think that's really cool. And as someone who has chronic illness, I would say this is sort of like twofold, right? Like I'm learning so much about myself, and I'm also learning so much about the coaching industry and how I can give service to others that are going through something similar to me, or maybe even something a little bit different to what I'm going through. So, a client of mine might not have the same illness or might not live in the same country or be the same age, but they still might benefit from learning as an adult. So, my partner said, oh, they're just doing it all for nothing. And I thought, oh my gosh, like that is just not how I see it. And of course, once I explained it to him, I think that he did sort of like see it from a different perspective, in the sense that we're not all learning for the same reasons, particularly if we're learning as an adult or as a person with a chronic illness that is learning just for the sake of learning because learning feels good. And actually, in one of the videos that I watched in preparation for this chat was that, and like, okay, we'll discuss this in more depth next time once I've had more time to look at it. But they go on to say, so, okay, like it's kind of a bit of an explanation. It is actually what I took my notes on, so maybe I'll refer to them in a moment. So the first part that I want to explain is that when a person feels addicted to something, or maybe doesn't feel or acknowledge that they're addicted to something, but they do it kind of all the time. And this kind of comes back to, let's say, as an example, social media. And this is kind of like whether or not you want to acknowledge it. Just like set that aside for now, because maybe you're not ready to acknowledge it and to change it. And like, I get that, times are changing and we need social media, and this is certainly being posted on social media. So I really am not speaking about the times in which it is useful to us. I'm speaking about the times in which we are disassociating and using social media as sort of like a tool to step away from reality. So when I use an example, I'm speaking about it like that. I'm not really here to judge social media as a whole, right? Or anything as a whole. So in any case, I digress. If one is to be addicted to social media and using it to disassociate, the thing is at first, we'll get like a little hit of happiness, right? That little hit of dopamine. And we'll watch like one YouTube video or one Instagram reel or whatever. And from there, if we are able to stop, then, our emotions will come back down and we'll kind of like re-enter reality again, right? Which has ups and downs and has movement and has different positions and sceneries, etc. And when we don't have that sort of little come down and we continue to watch videos or to sort of have that hit of dopamine, particularly with the same thing over and over and over again, well, first of all, it is harder to come down from that. And when we do come down from that, we might feel very unstimulated and possibly even bored or unhappy with our reality, because we have been in that state of happiness and heightened sort of like, feeding that indulgence stage, that now that we're coming down from that, we feel almost like a lack of that feeling, and it can feel extreme. So, and by the way, the part of the bring and look, like this isn't Bill Nye the Science Guy or anything here. If you want that, we can look at that together, but I'm just Emily. But in the video that I watched and in the notes that I took, they said that the pleasure part of the brain is very close to the pain receptors, the part of the brain. And in this way, it's kind of like, okay, at first you're getting pleasure because of the YouTube videos or the funniness of this reel or the, the great fun of this song that you're listening to, maybe your favorite song, or maybe you're making a reel and like you have to listen to this like beat over and over and over again. And if there's anything for that, let me know, because that is like so annoying. But in any case, the pleasure goes away, in other words, right? I mean, it becomes sort of annoying, like a little bit of a pain, right? And that's sort of what I equated to when I considered like that, even that calm down of like, I'm kind of like imagining like a toddler being told to get out of the ballroom, right? Like they don't want to, and they almost can't bring themselves to do it. And when I was thinking about the topic of education, someone came into my mind. I won't name names, but someone came into my mind, and I thought, well, that guy's really passionate about that, and that person spends hours watching the news and educating themselves, technically speaking, because they're learning all very in depth about a particular topic. And wouldn't that count? And in fact, this person that I speak of is doing it until like all hours of the morning, like like midnight, 1. And they're like really indulging in it. And in fact, while they're doing that, they are also like basically it's the news on TV, and like deep news on TV, right? So like hours and hours of the same shows, and then on to documentaries, etc. And they're really passionate about these subjects, but and they're doing it even late at night. And while they're doing it, they're really focused. But I think the reason why that doesn't sit the same way as sort of an education would is like they aren't taking it away from that one situation, and it would be one thing if they watched the show and the documentary and then went and had a discussion about it, or wrote a paper about it, or spoke about it, or then practiced the skill. Let's say like you're watching a cooking show or something. So I think there's a difference between like just watching something and then actually practicing doing it. So certainly I am learning that in my coaching course, because it is online. And if I were to just watch the entire course, as many of the people that are not becoming coaches will do, and then they don't go out and practice like the skills that we're learning, they don't take the knowledge beyond that. If they don't take the knowledge beyond that, have a discussion with a peer, with their doctor, or maybe learn a new recipe, maybe not necessarily become a coach, but create maybe a support group within their community, or even they learn how to communicate better with their partner, with their family, about their illness, or about why holistic health is important. So all to say is to sort of like take it and make it your own, if you will. So that's why I think that we need to sort of, especially as adults, and when we think about education, there's like varying degrees, right? And like what this person is doing late at night is good and like fine, and they can continue to do that. But it's more likely that this thing has become sort of like a habit, or a time to zone out, or to sort of avoid doing the work or the various things in their life that might sort of more need to get done. And this might feel like a little bit of a chance to escape. So I would say learning is more intentional than that. Okay, so moving forward, I do have some slides. Okay. So this is what I was wanting to lead into. So I've sort of described that part about like why learning sort of needs to be kind of more interactive, and possibly we may want to learn more than one thing at once. So as an adult, especially an adult with more time on their hands, if they are at home more often for any number of reasons, then they might need to be more creative with what they're learning. And they also might benefit from learning more than one thing for the purpose of, well, health and growth. So again, back to my topic, back to my point, I should say, is that someone who, and this was like a part of the overall thing that I listened to, but they basically went on to say that someone that is dealing with or living with, for example, chronic illness or depression, or, you know, deep-seated boredom and feeling terribly unfulfilled in their life, and possibly even overwhelmed or addicted to one thing or another. And this could be something like your job, or the social media, or of even of watching TV late at night, or even of also of one thing only. When that was sort of like a thought process that I was having, because it's kind of like too much of a good thing. So when I think about a person only having one hobby, I think that that's great. It would definitely have some benefit, but it's true to say as well that they might not get as much enjoyment out of it as they once did. And this is where I come to my point, is they were saying that people with sort of like sensitivities of say moods might benefit from some friction. And this is sort of where that pleasure and pain thing like gets lit up in the brain, is how I imagine it, right? Like where if you're chronically ill, there could be times when you're at home for long periods if you're suffering with a flare, right? And when I've been bedridden before, there isn't a lot that I can do. And that's not lost on me here in this conversation, right? And now that might not be relatable to everyone. If you're like, what, bedridden? Like, no, dude, I'm not bedridden. Okay, well, there's different levels, right? Of the illness presenting itself at different times. And sometimes we may be bedridden. So it might be that we can't handle possibly as much friction as, say, we used to be able to handle. So as much pleasure and as much pain and as much challenge and as much focus as we used to, but nevertheless, we could still benefit from that stimulation, that dopamine, that confidence, that sort of level of engagement that has our brain sort of working again, our hands working, our body and brain working together, that kind of a thing, right? It also, I think, would be nice because then we would have something else to talk about and to think about other than our illness. If we were just in the bed for many hours, we'd think, God, like, the only thing I really have to talk about right now is being in bed and being kind of miserable. So then what do you do from bed, right? Okay, well, that really depends on who you are and how much energy you have and how much friction or pain and pleasure you want, right? And when I say pain, I don't literally mean pain, but what I mean is like challenge, or sort of like delicately touching the limit, like this is something that I say when I teach yoga, is like just meeting your edge. So it doesn't mean that you like put yourself into a worse flare by going beyond your limit, but just like meeting your edge a little bit each day and possibly even pushing that every now and then to see what's available for you, right? Like one day you might be like, oh, my edge has kind of moved and I actually do have the ability to learn more or to do more or to practice for longer, right? And that might be a really slow progression, or things might come more easily and quicker. And I think that really depends on a lot of things. And actually, as I was learning about learning as an adult, I watched another video because I kind of like skipped around from a few videos. I was like, oh, this is an interesting point. And then I was like, but what about that? And so that's why I really feel like this topic just needs to be introduced. I feel like every time that I'll talk about something, it'll just be like an introduction, because I think that every topic is so big and so unique and so like so relevant to different people. And we'll just have to like kind of continue to be introduced by these concepts of health and how we integrate health into our life. So yeah. So the other video that I watched went on to talk about why, like how adults learn differently than younger people, and sort of like the features of why an adult would be motivated to learn something. And one of the features was actually the first feature, and I'll go back and I'll look. Maybe I can link the videos so that you can watch it. But basically it says the first one was need to know, right? So, and it's not the only one that I remember. And that's another thing, it's just like the ability to remember. But I think if you live with a chronic illness, we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves if we're having trouble remembering certain things. And that too is a skill. And that was something that they spoke to, was that, and of course it's the best and most popular excuse for not wanting to learn as an adult is that you can't because you are an adult. And that because your brain just isn't the sponge that it used to be. Well, kind of like, guys, who cares? Okay. It's not really about that. So the first one was like need to know. So like, why would an adult need to know something? So for example, like for me, I need to know this stuff because I'm hoping to coach. And so like, it would be really nice if I was able to sound super professional, and if I just sounded like Alexa and I just had all the facts and information. And I need to know it all. Like, I feel like I need to know it all in order to be like a good coach or the best coach or a coach at all. And no, that's not true. I can learn step by step, and it will unfold all on its own. And what I think I need to know now, it may turn out that I don't need to know that actually I wanted to and did need to know something else. In our course, we had hours worth of course on nutrition and etc. But I'm not a nutritionist, and you're unlikely to get any nutrition advice from me. And so at some point, I realized that I didn't really need to know that as much. Sure, I needed to know that for myself and practice my own nutrition for my own health. But really what I needed to do was learn how to teach you guys to learn how to give yourselves nutrition on your own. Oh my God. That was like crazy grammar that I'm sure is wrong. Basically, my job and what I should be learning and what I am learning in my course is not the nutrition advice that I should give you, but how to motivate you to go out and seek that nutrition advice on your own. So now suddenly, instead of being motivated by, hey, I need to learn all this nutrition advice, which of course is still fun to learn, I'm much more passionate about learning how to coach people, because I don't feel as though I need to learn those nutrition skills as much as I need to learn these coaching skills. So now I'm feeling more motivated to learn the coaching skills versus the nutrition skills. Although both skills would benefit me, but I don't feel in my career like I need to know that as much as that. So I hope that that makes sense. Oh my God, you're probably just like, can you stop talking about that? So I digress. But basically, there are different pillars of motivation when it comes to learning as an adult. I'm going to memorize them, and we're going to talk about them next time that we talk about adult learning. That's what I'm calling it, by the way. I'm not calling it education. You can call it what you want. I'm going to call it adult learning. When I think about adult learning, I mean, I've been a yoga teacher now for just about 4 years, and I don't really think of that as education. And I'm certainly a teacher, so yes, I am educating, but I wouldn't call it education. I don't know why. When I took yoga teacher training, would I have called that education? Like maybe I wouldn't have called it adult learning. Like I guess it's called training. So, and then that feels really kind of like, again, that feels like sporty and also job. So really when I think about adult learning, I'm really just thinking about particularly the word learning. And in yoga school, the studio which I studied at, they had pillars as well. And one of the sort of the pillars of the studio, or the pillars of yoga, if you will. And one of their pillars was live to learn. And actually I love that pillar. And it is one of the reasons why I was taking this course. I kind of decided when I started going to that yoga studio that I would be a forever learner. And that would become one of my pillars and one of my values. And it has ever since. And so I have been educating myself, adult learning, if you will, for the last few years. And I have done more yoga trainings and certificates. And now I'm in this year-long course of coaching. And I've also done retreats of such nature, like meditation. And I've taken cooking classes, and I do have a lot of hobbies and things that I would like to learn and things that I am learning. I don't think that I am a very conventional learner, and I don't really think I ever have been. And I think that's something that has stopped me from trying to learn. I went to art school. I think I explained that last time. And I dropped out, and I don't have any sort of higher education in that sense, like college or university. And I think and I never really did that great in high school either. I passed, but it wasn't really my thing, too much. And I much preferred to just socialize and to kind of just be there to interact with people and to have fun and to learn, but to learn, in a more dynamic sense, in a messier way, And so in that way, I think that we don't need to worry so much about that when it comes to adult learning, and that doesn't need to be the measuring stick, the ruler that we measure on, right? We get to just throw that ruler out the window, and we get to just do whatever we want when it comes to learning. And of course, it will be important to have some discipline and some some willingness to continue through the difficult times of the learning process. And particularly again, as a person with chronic illness or a person who's aging, let's call that chronic illness if you want, right? I mean, to say that the memory just isn't good enough, or my vision or my hearing or this or that or the other thing. I mean, people are born without hearing and make music. People are born without vision and ski down mountains. People are born without hands and draw. Let's not go there. Okay, you can do all of these things if you really want to, if you really try, if you take it step by step, if you are creative, open-minded, have enough discipline and drive. Of course, there will be the need for some money, depending on how much it costs, because some are expensive, and then it will take possibly a support system, maybe even a teacher or a supportive partner, etc. But, pick your battles, right? If you just need something to do from bed, maybe you just get a pad of paper and a pencil, and start there. And turn on a YouTube drawing class, and voila, you have your afternoon drawing class. And maybe you just start with 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to put my slides on. I don't know how long I've been talking for, but I do try to not eat up the afternoon, if you know what I mean. So let me put on my slides, because that's something that I'm learning, right? I'm learning how to do this live video. I'm learning how to do Canva. I'm learning how to do marketing. Like when you own a business, you learn it all. And if you have chronic illness and you're running a business and you're a yoga teacher and you're trying to be a coach and you're trying to do the whole thing, it can feel like a lot sometimes. And that has created that enjoyable little friction that keeps me getting out of bed. And of course, I don't want to push it too hard, which I do think to a certain extent that is one of the contributing factors to my illness. And I think that we can speak to that for a minute, right? I think that will come up in some of my coaching sessions where the client will just be like, nope, can't, too hard, I can't. And I get it, because I have 3 chronic illnesses and I'm a yoga teacher, and there are days when I don't want to get out of bed, but because my students pay me, and because I know how wonderful yoga is, and I know how great I feel afterwards, and I know that they hold a safe space for me, and I know that that I can go at my own pace and express myself freely. And I also know that my students are going through a similar thing at varying degrees. Some of my students don't have chronic illness. And I bet you if I didn't tell them that I have chronic illness, they probably wouldn't even know. So I think that just because you have a chronic illness doesn't mean that you can't get out of bed. And if you don't have a chronic illness, also, it doesn't mean you can get out of bed. I just mean life is tough sometimes. And sometimes we need that little thing that gets us out of bed. We don't need that little thing that gets us out of bed and throws us against the wall, but gets us out of bed. That could do it. That could be a good first step. So I know that at the really early stages of being diagnosed, I did need to take a step back and reevaluate my abilities and my levels of energy, but there still was some there, and it has grown over time as skills and awareness have grown over time. And that is something that adult learning and education can bring to you. as someone who may feel limited by their day-to-day abilities. Okay, so I loved this image because it just like, yeah, this person is just opening up their mind, but also with their hand, they're giving like a little subtle boundary of saying like, that's kind of enough today, right? And I think that that's okay. And I think that like also we need to know when to say that that's enough, right? Because when we don't know when to say that that's enough, that's when the pleasure turns into pain. So certainly like when I'm on my yoga mat, it's really important that I don't go too far, right? Also like my creative levels and my enjoyment from teaching yoga, the more I teach, there becomes like a tipping point where like it actually doesn't get better. It actually doesn't get more creative. I actually need to go and step away and relax and sort of get that yin to that yang. So I think that that's sort of like a nice symbol of just saying like, I've had enough today and I'll come back to this another day. So it's okay to put down a craft and or a hobby and to come back to it and or a subject and to know that you'll come back to it. And then if you don't ever come back to it, a couple of things could be helpful. Either you need to work on your discipline, you could reevaluate your energy, you could reevaluate your approach as well. And I'll get into that in this slide. So let's move on. So if your mind was a garden, would you leave it to die? I love that quote. If you lose, well, I came up with that one, right? Because I saw this beautiful image and I thought, yes, that chick's mind is an awesome garden. And it just bloomed like in every way. And she seems she's be content by that. When the coughing starts, I'm done. All right, hold on, because I just like need to do some coughing, I think. Okay, I had like a tickle in my throat. Let me just check to see if my headphones are still in. They're not. Let me see. Oh, I don't know. Maybe they were never connected. I don't know. But sometimes when you take them out, they like disconnect. Let's not worry about it, but I'll keep them in just in case they connect at some point. Okay, so I've lost my train of thought. But in any case, adult learning, you can see here, I kind of like put it on its head here. And I encourage you to do the same thing, right? Like if you want to refer to it as your hobby, as your passion, as your downtime, as your man cave, your she shed, or whatever it is, right? Your side gig, your hustle, like it might be that, or it might not be, or like it could just be like something that you do sometimes, or something that you used to do, or something that you want to do, and something that you are going to do, right? Like it can just be in all these different categories. And then hopefully one day you really would get a chance to do it on some level. So take some time to quiet your mind. Like first, you just need to think like, if I were to learn something, what would I want to learn, right? Like that's totally different for everyone. And I'm sorry, I'm distracted because I want to like, yeah, let's do that. That might help. I disconnected my headphones from my phone. And then maybe that will help. Okay, well, we'll see. Again, I will continue not to worry about it because we are live. This is live, actually. This is like the live channel. So because I'm no editor. So you get to see all of the painful process that it is to become a public speaker, to learn how to be a public speaker, to learn the poker face. So I need to quiet my mind sometimes, right? And learn those various skills. And I just needed, like, everyone just needs to get curious about, like, what are your desires? What were your desires when you were younger? Like, begin again. It's like, you know, when you first enter high school and you get like your electives. Like, I remember electives in school. I wonder if your school did that as well, but you got to learn like music or art or Japanese or, you know, home ec and tech. And that was great because that was the learning that I really appreciated much more than the subjects that I needed to sit down for and learn in that way. I much more appreciated the learning where, like, I got to get my hands in there and sort of like have fun with it, right? Yeah, I really enjoyed that a lot more. So this is something that I think is important as well. If you are going to learn and you might consider, like, what have you never experienced before, or what would you like to experience again, because maybe you thought you had a natural talent for it, or because you know, you had a friend that did it in school when you were younger and you always wanted to do it as well, but never had the chance when you were younger, right? So just start to get curious about what would you learn, or what do you need to learn, right? Like, back to that need to know things. So, like, for me, I do need to learn nutrition, and I also needed to learn how to coach people. So since becoming chronically ill, I mean, nutrition has become a huge part of my life. Am I a nutritionist? No. Am I taking much better care of myself because of the knowledge of nutrition that I now have? Hell yeah. So yeah, in order to keep myself out of the hospital, in order to keep myself unmedicated on various medications, I did really need to learn about how to care for myself nutritionally. And so if you're watching this video because you have a chronic illness and you're like, man, I have the chronic diarrhea too, Emily, like, I really want to go and see a nutritionist, but I can't afford one. Well, you know, heads up, maybe you start learning yourself. And maybe that is with quieting your mind, and start by just mindful eating. Okay, you don't know how to mindfully eat? Maybe you start just by learning how to mindfully eat. And then from mindful eating, you find out that cabbage gives you gas. And then you're like, why does cabbage give me gas? And then you find out that cabbage is a certain type of a vegetable. Maybe this certain type of a vegetable has like a family name. Now, don't ask me all the family names of the vegetables, but I'm pretty sure I know this one, and it's called, I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, but it's called the gracefully family. If you know how to say that properly, you just go ahead and let me know in the comments. We can practice it together, but that's how we're saying it for now. And that family includes like kale and broccoli and cauliflower. And I learned that, like, these vegetables are more difficult for me to digest. Now, that might not be the case for you, but how are you going to learn about that? Well, first things first, you might have to learn how to mindfully eat. Now, you could learn how to mindfully eat just by practicing it, right? By practicing discipline, by practicing focus, by watching a 5-minute video online, putting out, I have like, so I practice mindful eating as well. And I've got a little timer here. And I don't naturally mindfully eat. I need to practice it. I first needed to learn it. And well, I needed to learn it because I wanted to feel better. And I wanted to be able to absorb vitamins and minerals that I was eating and or detect any food intolerances. So I needed to kind of slow down and do that more mindfully and sort of like take a different approach to eating than I was before. So this comes back to needing to learn. So maybe you don't start with something so as ambitious as like learning how to you know, high dive board jump or whatever that's called. I don't know. Like I'm imagining someone like doing a twist from the high jump, right? Like maybe that's not what we're learning today. Maybe we're just learning like why this vegetable makes me gassy, or what does it mean to have dry eyes and a dry mouth and dry skin? Like, is that maybe a symptom of our illness? Like maybe something that could be really interesting is to learn more about your illness, about your symptoms, about your relationships, about your town, about your car, about you know, your cooking, about your computer. I watched this one video, and this woman in Japan, she was 81 years old. She got her first computer at 58 years old. She started to learn about the computer, and she wanted an app, like a game, that she would enjoy because she thought that she would want to play a game on her computer. And there was no app game for seniors. And so she came up with one, and she learned how to code at 81 years old. And now there is an app for Japanese seniors, and she is an advocate for Japanese seniors learning, or seniors in general, I suppose, but in Japan, learning technology and like learning how to code, and like why learning how to use the smartphones or the computers is beneficial to them. So I forget where I was going with that. Oh, it was like the need to know things. So, I mean, it can start as just needing to know something like really small that you're interested in, and then it can just spiral from there, and you can really become quite passionate about this thing and how it helped you, right? And I think that too, like that's sort of like what influencers do, right? In like micro moments where they're like learning about something and then they're like promoting it, sort of like what I'm doing now, right? I'm promoting to you about learning. It's why I needed to learn about learning and learning as an adult. And turns out that that's pretty fascinating. And then I thought, like, how interesting would me learning about learning be for coaching? Because really, as a coach, I'm just wanting to motivate you to learn. So how do I sort of like get you to be the best learner that you can be so that you can have the best results that you would want? Okay, next slide. So just keep swimming, right? We learn in many ways. It doesn't have to cost a fortune. It doesn't have to be every day. You don't have to be an expert, and you don't have to hire an expert either. You don't need to be young, and you can begin right now. Start by just pondering, right? So if I wanted to learn how to ride a bike, I might just simply start thinking about where I could get a bike, where I would ride a bike, what are the skills that I would need to ride a bike. Maybe I can't afford a bike, so maybe I go out and get a book about a bike from the library, right? Maybe I just start to build that curiosity and that desire and that passion one step at a time. And then maybe, and just hear me out, maybe, and I'm just making this up, I can't believe such a smarty pants sometimes, but let's say that your goal and what you're learning about starts like, okay, I want to ride a bike, but I don't know how. So I'm going to go get a library I'm going to go get a book from the library, and I'm going to learn about bikes. And then suddenly now you want to learn more about the mechanics of bikes. Or maybe now you want to learn more about designing your own bike. Or maybe now you're interested in learning about the history of bikes. Like it develops, and maybe you find out that you weren't that interested in riding the bike, but you more wanted to be a bike mechanic, or you more wanted to draw bikes, or you were interested in the design and the mechanics of the bike, and you are interested in that, or you're interested in maybe an athlete that rode a bike across the country or something like that. And then maybe only a year after that do you get into riding a bike. And then for whatever reason, you're more invested and more interested in it. So just start by pondering, why are you interested in this particular thing? What about it is interesting to you? And how can you approach it so that you're able to begin where you are at? And that could be from your bed. That could be with a small budget. That could be with very little knowledge, right? Just begin where you are. And if you don't know where to begin, and if you don't have anyone to do it with, here's what I say: it's time to be a beginner, right? We don't really like that as adults, to be beginners, to have to learn again. But when you get chronically ill, oh, you're going to be pissed. There's so much learning. And I think if someone said, you're chronically ill, but here's the manual for it, and don't worry about it, you'll do great. You already know how to handle it, and you have all these skills to handle it. I'd be like, okay, sounds like I'm ready. But instead, what happened is one day I went from healthy and doing it all to not healthy at all, and doing nothing at all, and not being able to do anything at all, not knowing what I was going to be able to do with myself. And I just felt like I was in the deep end. So there is a lot to learn if you have just been recently diagnosed. And that is why a coach can be so useful, because you do maybe feel pretty overwhelmed and unsure about what your first step should be, or what your next step should be, or if you're even on the right track at all, or why this is happening to you. And you might need to go through some emotional stages in that, and that too requires some learning. Like, I'm not used to these feelings because I'm not used to being ill, and I don't know what it's like to have these adverse treatments on a regular basis, to be invisibly ill and to feel so unfamiliar with the territory that I'm in suddenly, right? Like, yeah, I'm definitely still feeling like a beginner, and it's like embarrassing a lot of the time, right? Like, I'm just like super humbled, just like nonstop, by living in France, by being chronically on. I equate those two nearly, and immigrating to another country, not knowing the language, throwing yourself in the deep end, being, somewhat middle-aged and starting your career over again in a foreign country. And as an entrepreneur, as a solo entrepreneur, I mean, like, guys, it is not pretty over here, and it's on display. Luckily, only like a handful of you get this far to watch, but if you are still around watching this video, know that there is a steep learning curve happening here, and that we'll just be really kind to ourselves and to one another. So yeah, here you can see this woman, she's like knitting, she's like sewing, she's got her tea out, she's got this big smile on her face. You can tell she's like home from work, or like on a Saturday, and like bored, and she's already watched all the YouTube videos that she wants. She's scrolled through all the social media already, and she's like, fuck, what now? Okay, well, a hobby, I guess, learning, I guess, like something hard, I guess. I'll do it for 5 minutes. Let's see where it goes. So yeah, you can begin right where you are, right? You can do it alone. You don't need someone to teach you. You don't need, necessarily, right? You don't need to have a friend doing it with you. You can do it all alone. You don't actually need permission. No one needs to tell you, yes, you can do that. You can do it whenever you want. You can learn whatever you want in the way that you want to. You can learn whatever you want. Yeah, that's what I wrote there. You can learn whatever you want. Just start to learn. I've got a friend who's learning how to be a masseuse, And this is hard for them, and they're doing it anyways, and they're doing it alone, and they needed to give themselves permission to take that first step. And that might be the hardest step they take. And then from there, it might just roll out, you know? So no time, make time. No money, go to the library. No idea, check it out at the community center, right? They have little lists, right? No one to go with, go alone. Can't leave the, and go alone. And by the way, they're like, you know, when I speak about that, I get that things can be far, etc. Well, you know, then yes, you might need to ask someone to take you there. But for example, my grandma goes to the choir and to the senior center, and she gets the handy dart. So where there's a will, there's a way. Okay. So yeah, no one to go with, go alone. Or try a different approach. Maybe you do an online class. Maybe the teacher comes to you. Okay. Can't leave the house, do it from home. There you go. I already put that there, guys. Can't do it personally, make it your own. Yeah. Meaning that, like, again, if you can't ride a bike, maybe that would first then require to join a biking group for accessible bikers. What does accessible bikers mean? I don't know. You'll have to learn. Okay, so learning first by meeting people that might have the same illness as you and be bikers. Like, is that like a possible thing? And of course, bikers is just an example. They could be dancers, they could be writers, they could be, singers, or like, just like this guy who's deaf. The other day, I was watching this little like 5-minute like video, and he's like, has autism and is non-communicative, and I believe, well, yeah, non-communicative, maybe he can hear, but he wrote like a whole symphony, guys. And so like, and I don't know how he did it, but he did, and he must have learned somehow. So just the human mind is an incredible beast. And if you really want to learn something, I bet you can. And I bet you will feel so enlivened by that process. I think this is my last slide. I really think you will feel so enlivened by that process. And if you're new to learning or don't think yourself a very good learner, just start with something that feels really important to learning to you. And if you're feeling resistance, maybe you look that up and learn more about yourself. You know, when I think about, actually, I've been journaling more, and I'll go grab it for you and I'll read what I wrote, and then we'll finish up. I also want to say that, like, earlier, okay, so I live here in France, you know, obviously learning French is like, you'd think my priority, and that I would be out taking French lessons, but no, I've lived here multiple times for multiple years, and it is very rare that I have taken a French class because I don't really like learning that way, as previously mentioned. And so earlier on today, I went to a watercolor class for my first time. It was so great. This is what I made. Right? And so I learned French while I was there, guys. Not only did I learn French while I was there, but I learned listening skills, and I learned painting skills, and I learned relationship skills, and I learned how to focus and concentrate. And as I go every week, I will hone those skills as well as water painting, which is so cool. And not only that, but as another example, yesterday I went to a physiotherapist appointment, which is so awesome. And my physiotherapist said, would you be interested in learning some exercises? I said, of course, right? And that's so great, because then I can learn them and I can share them with my clients and my yoga students. But also not only that, but then I can learn the mechanics of my body more. And then again, it comes back to the needing to learn, right? Like, it's great that I can go to the physiotherapist and he can do it for me, but isn't it better possibly if I can learn how to do it myself? And I might do it differently than him, right? I might not do it as good as him. So then sometimes I go to him, and then sometimes I do it on my own. So sometimes you learn just so that you can adapt it more to yourself and to your needs. That's one thing I love about at-home wellness, is that, like, at some point, maybe you don't need to pay for that service anymore, and you become sort of your own teacher. And now you can kind of teach yourself, or you can walk yourself through the process because you've practiced it, and you no longer sort of require such hands-on learning. You can go and learn more independently. And that was actually another thing that adults really enjoyed learning and would learn better if it was sort of a feature of the learning method, which is that they could make it their own, that there would be freedom to adapt to their level, right? Rather than, say, being shamed or something. So I've just started taking up the art journaling again, and that too, again, focusing and the whole skill of writing and expressing your feelings and getting in touch with them, etc. So I wrote a little bit about being a forever learner last night in my journal as I was sort of preparing for this talk. So while I have no degree hanging on my wall, I do know I am able to sit and listen to do the most informative wisdom there ever was. And in my journal, we don't write perfectly. You don't have to either. So I am able to sit and listen to the most informative wisdom there ever was. I have a master's degree in being me. Being well as me, this is something that requires dedication. I am growing, expanding, deep diving into the fire. I do not stop when it gets difficult, but I will resist, for it is not easy to evolve into the flower. But I did not come here to be the flower. I came here to be the garden. Yes, I wrote that. I am a poet and I did not even know it. And you know what? You might be too. That's all I have to say today. I am going to eat my granola and yogurt that's been sitting next to me because I so spontaneously just hit the live button and thought, we're doing this right now or we're not doing it at all. In fact, this was meant to happen yesterday. Normally the Wellness Journal is on Wednesdays, but this week it was on Thursday. I'm not quite sure why. I think it was just a little bit of procrastination. And yesterday was, like I said, I had the physio appointment and I was off learning. I was off learning watercolors and just doing fun stuff with my life. So I encourage you to do the same. Turn off this video immediately and go and learn something as an adult today or this week or anytime you feel like it. You can do it. And I look forward to seeing you on Friday for the 15 minutes of movement. And I hope that you have a great day. Bye.